very soon. Justin Gaethje will try to become the undisputed champion in the lightweight division for the second time, being a master of cruelty in stand-up. Justin has a serious gap in the grappling that champion Charles Oliveira will want to take advantage of. Now let's find out. This is MMA time. And this is a skill breakdown of Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje, after losses, changes quickly, very much progressing and showing new techniques and strategic decisions, but there are fundamental aspects of his technique, and one of them is the pace of the fight. His pace is reminiscent of peak Robbie Lawler, who accelerates from round to round until he reaches his peaks just in time for the end of the fight, where either he destroys the opponent or it happens to him. Gaethje's defeats and progress. When Justin Gaethje arrived in UFC, he was a ruthless brawler. Then in the course of each of his fights he developed his style and adopted techniques of the fighters who defeated him. His first defeat was Eddie Alvarez, and in this fight basically a game plan was invented to defeat Gaethje. It consists of: first, lots of light jabs. Second, hit the body from the very beginning of the battle. Third, decoys. Fourth, clinch. Fifth, vertical attacks 6 by 12. Alvarez used feints from the very beginning of the fight and Gaethje twitched at each of them. Eddie jabbed him after every feint, immediately switching to hooks on the body. All the Gaethje's twitches was rising elbows and fully opening the jaw to attacks from below. Also, in order to prevent Justin from arranging his endless meal of punches, Eddie used the clinch with one hand, thanks to which he blocked some of the attacks and could inflict a lot of damage himself. Eddie was able to handle everything except Gaethje's pace, which he was able to ramp up thanks to low kicks. But such holes in technique prevented him from beating, and Alvarez, using this sequence of actions, defeating Justin with a knee. Gaethje's next major defeat was against Poirier, where he closed most of his holes. Feints no longer worked so explicitly. It was noticeable that Gaethje's level had increased, the movements had become less predictable, and he had even adopted Alvarez's techniques, such as the clinch, through which he beat Justin, and even the somersault that Eddie had made. That wasn't enough for Gaethje to win, but he was very close and almost finished Dustin a couple of times. But in the last fight against Tony, he surprised everyone. The fight was on short notice, and it is obvious that Ferguson expected to see the same Justin as usual, but instead of his hard pressure, he got cold-bloodedly Gaethje, who worked as the second number, which for such a brawler was completely atypical. He closed all the remaining gaps, uppercuts and knees no longer work, and he even learned to get away from jabs with the help of head movement. Fight against Ferguson.
Right from the start, Gaethje is a surprise as he doesn't rush at Tony, but keeps his distance and moves to the sides, but at the same time, wanting El Cucuy go at him linearly. He uses a chopping right low kick. The second surprise from Justin was his defense against direct blows. He is known for deliberately catching his straights with his forehead, but against Tony, he used boxing classics, a horizontal block of Joe Frazier with a left hook, and he also managed to fend off the straights, which would cause a lot of problems for the opponent. After all, through straights, El Cucuy prepares uppercuts and controls the distance. Because of this, Tony began to throw out more and more front kicks for knocking out breath and to combine them with a direct hit. This is his signature combination. Gaethje very quickly shut down Ferguson's ambitions. He tried to fend off the front kick and threw a hook against the straights, after which he began to impose his pace of battle. Justin moved to the sides. When he needed to go to the right, he threw a jab or left hook at an offset, and when to the left, he used a deadly combination of a right straight, a dive to the left to charge for a strike, and the left hook. Ferguson bit by bit begins to hit jabs in the fight in order to eventually turn them into a Manari roll, but as it turned out, Gaethje has an answer to this. The same combination of the right straight left hook, in fact this answer was to the body jab. Gaethje quickly realised that this would work with a jab in the hip. At the beginning of round 3, Tony begins to dismantle Gaethje on his shift with a straight. He still hits jabs in the leg, thereby continuing to invest in his future Manari rolls and the ankle pick, which he planned to use according to the game plan. By the third round, Gaethje finally got used to Tony's style. The fact is that Ferguson has very unusual timing and pace. He loves to effortlessly throw his straights, for example, break through a jab, take a short pause so the opponent makes a mistake and then break through with a straight, or instead of straight, do something unexpectedly like a back fist. Before this fight, it was not clear how to work against such a rhythm of the battle, but as it turned out, you should not get stuck on the tempo itself. Since you should not repeat it in this matter, you need to create your own rhythm and break Ferguson's rhythm. Therefore, Justin did not fight with the general course of Tony's blows and his movements, but with the specific gaps that we explained in our analysis. For example, the fact Ferguson very often makes dives to the right during his hits, which makes his head position obvious at such moments, and it's easy for Justin to punch through a straight. Also, what has been known for a long time from the battle against Dos Anjos is Tony's corners. Justin easily cut them and found himself to the side of the Mexican. These are the two main mistakes that Tony did not correct for many years and Gaethje used. Instead of going into exchanges with an accelerating Tony, who creates his own rhythm, he simply used these errors and countered Ferguson each time, breaking this most important combination in a battle, a straight and left hook. At one such moment of Tony's acceleration, Gaethje as always hit true, and this time he was especially tightly controlled. It was a turning point in the battle. Tony does not change anything in his tactics. He also stubbornly tries to advance on Gaethje and comes to the same result as before. As soon as Ferguson tries to adapt a little to Justin's combinations, he immediately begins to modernise them. For example, from the beginning of this round he beat only with his front hand jabs and hooks, since Tony was waiting for the back straight. At the same time, with his front hand he continued to focus cuts on the face of Ulkukui, and only in this round, having already been completely beaten, did Tony try to make the only Manari roll. But he looked without a chance, since he was exhausted, beaten, did not pick a good moment. This had to be done much earlier, but Tony stubbornly wanted to outfox his opponent. And because of what happened next, Ferguson was really pitiful, since Justin just broke him and forced him to run away from the blows. The referee intervened and stopped the fight.
Game plan versus Oliveira. Gaethje has to impose his pace and catch the champion in a hurry, because Justin has repeatedly proved that he can work at high level as both the first and second number. And when it's time for the clinch, he has the most unorthodox weapon for which it is impossible to prepare – low kicks. Gaethje is the only fighter in the UFC who can cut from the clinch with a killer low kicks, and as absurd as it may be, but kicks from the clinch are several times safer than from the stand-up. After all, both fighters are already mentally prepared for the fact that there will be a takedown. That is, Justin was already be ready to defend against a passage in one leg. And when the takedowns successfully pass, you need not to panic and not just lie down like Poirier did. Such tactics will instill confidence in Oliveira, but it will be a mistake to get up quickly, as wrestlers often give their backs when they return to the rack. Therefore, you need to use a cage or hips to climb back and stand up. He will be able to take rounds in the stand-up and possibly finish Charles. One thing is for sure, this fight will not go distance. What do you think about this fight? Who do you think will win? Write in the comments.